Hi, welcome everyone to Popcult X episode 120. Got a lot of interesting things to talk about, so we're going to go and jump right into it. Danny, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing really good. Had a great week with some cool new things that I got into, so I want to get started. The first one being I finally got the opportunity to see Blue Beetle on Sunday. Was weathering the tropical storm that was what is it, Tropical Hillary or Hurricane Hillary or whatever it was. Didn't really turn out to be all that much here in San Diego, but I thought if I have to be stuck indoors, I'm also be at the movies. So we went to the AMC here locally and checked out Blue Beetle, and it was really entertaining. It was a really fun movie. It is kind of, the same old stories that are always told. Like Shakespeare says, every story only like what 5 stories that are rehashed. So it's like that coming of age story about a young man kind of coming to terms with the new powers that he has, sort of like Spider-Man, Superman, all of the others. The difference being that he is Mexican American, Latino man, and he is returning from college as a recent college graduate, and with the support of his family is trying to develop his new life. And that happens to be that he turns into a superhero with the Blue Beetle that attaches itself to him, and all the adventure that it then turns into from there. But it was a really funny movie. It has a lot of jokes. George Lopez is really funny in it. Got a lot of cool action. Susan Sarandon is pretty good as the villain. But it was really entertaining, and it has a kind of a heartfelt message that, family is important, which is obviously very true for a lot of Latino or Mexican people, that family is a really core value to us as people. So it kind of goes from that theme. And but outside of that, it's just real fun. Lots of cool special effects. Really cool superpowers that he has, this alien technology that can kind of turn into different types of weapons to protect him, and then to be an offensive weapon as well as a defensive weapon. So hopefully it did really well. It's the #1 movie. It overtook Barbie. So I'm hoping that maybe it'll get a sequel and it'll send a message to Hollywood that we need to see more movies with Latino superheroes in it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not even superheroes, just Latinos as leads, right, in the films. But I haven't seen it yet, so thank you for sparing a little bit of the details. I do plan on watching it soon, especially because, and I'm going to tease for September 3rd, if you guys are here watching now. Before then, we're going to be having a Blue Beetle roundup. I'm calling it a roundup. We're going to have the artist, the writer, and the colorist for the new DC ongoing Blue Beetle series on our show in a live special. So make sure you guys follow and subscribe to us, so that way you're notified when that happens. Of course, it's going to be on September 3rd, which is a Sunday at noon. So you've heard it here.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the thing that's really cool about these movies that are made from comic books, is that if you get really interested and invested in the character, then you can kind of turn towards the comic books and kind of continue that adventure, even if it doesn't result in a second or third film, or like Guardians of the Galaxy, a third film, but then it ends, but then you can go back to the comics and still have more adventures, if you will, with those characters.
Definitely. And I think James Gunn did say that Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, is going to be a big part of the DCU going forward. So whether that's as a team up or on a solo films, but he's in the works for the rest of the DCU. So that's good to hear. Yeah,
that's very cool. I'm really excited to hear that.
Yeah, and I did watch another film that had a Latino lead, but it wasn't a superhero movie. And that's why I said that. I watched a fun film on Hulu called Miguel Wants to Fight. Now, it's a action film. I think it's made by like action nerds. I think, what's his name? Shea Serrano was one of the co-writers on it. And it was really, really fun and entertaining. It had comedic elements, and it was another coming of age story like you watched with Blue Beetle. And it centered around family, but also found family. So Miguel and his three best friends go through, their high school years, and how they always get, and two of them always like to get into fights, and how one of them, Miguel, has never like jumped in with them, so he feels like kind of like the outcast, and how he learns to come to grips with that. And then an event happens in the movie that makes him really want to get into a fight, hence the title. And it's really fun. It pulls from like Enter the Dragon, pulls from like Matrix type movies. So he envisions himself fighting in these different type of styles. And it's really fun and entertaining. So if you have Hulu, which Gabe, I know you don't, but anyone out there, if you do have Hulu, go watch Miguel Wants to Fight. It is really fun.
Nice. I will have to somehow get Hulu back and check it out.
Yeah, just for that film, I would.
Yeah, nice. The other thing that I did was I had a bit of a throwback moment. I went to go see some bands from like the 80s,
Nice.
Culture Club and Berlin and Howard Jones. If you're familiar with those people from the 80s, I mean, some even like the early 80s. But it was really fun. It was another concert event that I have gone to that has been sort of targeted towards the Gen X demographic. And they're not necessarily like the biggest hit makers now, but it was really fun just to kind of go and hang out. I got some VIP tickets from my day job, so
Cool.
I was able to kind of relax in the VIP area and just kind of chill out and listen to some good music. And I think Berlin, they said that they've been together for like over 40 years. So
Wow.
they've been doing their thing for a really long time. And so that was fun, just to kind of hang out and see a bunch of old people drink and have a good time listening to music.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I listened to some music too this weekend or this past week, and it got me to thinking about a topic that we should discuss on the podcast. Maybe we'll do it today if there's time. I watched a Beastie Boys Story on Apple TV Plus. And it was a fun story told by Mike D and MCA, the two surviving members of Beastie Boys. And it was really, really cool to hear their stories of how they came together, how they formed, what they went through, and, how much Adam Yauch, who passed away, how much he meant and drove the other two to actually form the group. So I know you've said you're not a huge Beastie Boys fan, but it's really worth spending an hour and a half watching that documentary to learn about them. Maybe it'll give you a deeper appreciation of what they did and what they went through.
Yeah, I like their old, I mean, their newer stuff. I mean, now it's considered old, but if you look at like their career span, like the very beginning of their career, like what's that one song, like Fight for Your Right to Party?
Yeah.
I can't stand that song. That's like one of my least favorite songs ever. But other than that, I like a lot of their other music. So I just can't deal with that one particular album and that one song.
That's Licensed to Ill, which came out in 1986. Which is funny, which made me think about the year 1986 and what other songs or music or movies came out in that time frame that maybe I didn't appreciate as much then because I was only 9 years old. But maybe now looking back, I really did say, hey, that was really cool. And of course, Paul Revere, which is on that License to Ill album, is one that I recognize or probably knew the lyrics to when it first came out at 9, 10 years old. It was such a great, fun song for me. But they talk about that, the Fight for Your Right to Party, how it kind of made them look like these frat boys and stuff. And so they played into that image hard for that time, but now they can't stand it. So it's really funny that you said you can't stand that song, because I think if you were to ask them if they liked it right now, they'd be like, no, we hated that now.
Yeah, so it's an annoying song. It really is a bad, like, I don't know what it is about that particular song, but it really gets under my skin. But what other things came out in that year that you can remember?
Well, there was a lot of like cartoons that, of course, were available, like Ghostbusters cartoons. There was like, G.I. Joe, Transformers. But I remember my sisters watching like Pound Puppies cartoons, and that was a big toy at the time too. Of course, Care Bears as well. Now, just recently, I watched the movie Alien, the original one, all the way through for the very first time.
Nice.
Might sound surprising, but I've never seen it all the way through. And then I didn't realize that it took 7 years between when Alien came out in 1979 to the sequel Aliens in 1986. So I watched that a couple of days ago for the very first time all the way through. And it was quite the improvement. I really enjoyed Aliens, the sequel, much better than I did the first one.
Yeah, Aliens, I think, is where James Cameron kind of developed his style of action. It's just such a really good movie. There's so many good light quotes, a lot of action, the special effects, the science fiction aspect of it. It's such a good movie. It's a classic.
Yeah, it really is. It's really a great movie. I really did enjoy it, and I can't believe it took me this long to watch it.
Yeah, I know. Why did you wait?
Just one of those things that you never, I'll watch it one day. One day never came around till a couple days ago.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of relates to that time period is that the character Beetlejuice, I went to go see the Beetlejuice musical the other day, and it was hilarious. It's so funny. You know that I'm not like a huge fan of musicals, but
yeah,
the Beetlejuice character is so funny. There's just to give you an idea of like what kind of humor is evident in the musical. One of the characters, Beetlejuice turns to him and says, you've really changed, you've really, developed. And the guy's like, no, I haven't. He's like, okay, well then fuck off. And it made me laugh because it was just like it's so irreverent and so funny. I mean, it's just the character really Beetlejuice, like the musical, like the music is okay, but the jokes that he has in the musical are just hilarious. I really recommend it for anyone that's into that type of stuff. Very Especially cool. If you're a fan of the Beetlejuice movie, it's a really good. It's a different story than the movie. They've kind of changed it around, but it's really fun and kind of keeps you guessing because they didn't like basically make the movie into a musical. They took concepts from the movie and then turned it into a musical.
That's what I was going to ask. Did they retell the story, or is it like an extension of the movie, or
yeah,
what would you say is more
from the point of view of Lydia losing her mom and her kind of being goth and suffering, and being depressed because she doesn't have her mom. And then from there, she kind of meets Beetlejuice and the, adventures and hilarity ensue.
Very cool. Very cool. What other things about 1986 really stand out to you?
To be honest, I can't really remember specifically that year. If I Googled, I'm sure that I would be able to see some things, but I would have to look at what, I mean, I can remember vaguely more like the 80s than I can that specific year.
Gotcha. And Gabe, not to interrupt our 1986 conversation, but we did have a little talk about Blue Beetle. And I got a little excited when you mentioned that you saw it because there was an artist who recently did a little Blue Beetle story in the Legions of Bloom that just came out not too long ago. And that's a Jacoby Salcedo. And we're fortunate enough to be joined by Jacoby, the artist here on Popcult X. Thanks, Jacoby, for taking some time tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really cool to go from the movie, Gabe, I'm sure you could talk a little bit more about this, to seeing some of your artwork and as Blue Beetle continues to grow and hopefully just continues to blow up for more people to see them. When you got approached to do the Blue Beetle for this issue, what was that like for you?
It was super exciting. So how I kind of got that job was that I did a Rose City Comic-Con in Portland last year, and I was tabling with my frequent collaborator Julio, who did our book Frontera that just came out. Yeah. He was the editor Andrew Marino. He was doing like portfolio reviews.
Oh, cool.
And I kind of was like, should I take up his time? Because I was at a point in my career where I was just like, slowly, I think that weekend it just announced like my Dark Horse miniseries. And he was like, dude, you should just do it. And I was like, okay, fine. And I did do it. And I'm so glad I did. And he was like, all right, what's your schedule looking like? And a couple months later, he hits me up and he's like, hey, do you want to do this Blue Beetle short? And it'll be with Julio as well. So that's
That's
how
cool.
that happened. And yeah, it was really cool because one, it was my first DC project, but Julio's like a brother to me now. And it was really cool to have that first project be with him as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of Julio, how did you guys create that partnership? How did you guys come together?
So when Julio and I were like both coming up, I just kind of got like a random email, and he was like, "Hey, my name's Julio. I have this comic idea or this short comic. Are you down to do this?" And at the time, I was like, I literally was doing nothing. Like I was just drawing for myself, and I was like, "Sure, why not?" And he was like, "Hey, it's paid," and I was like, "Oh, definitely." And so we did this short story. I think it was like 8 pages. It was called "The Price of Freedom," and over that like short amount of time, I was like, "This is like fun," and he was like, "Yeah, I feel the same too." And he was like, "Do you want to do another story together?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And it actually ended up being Frontera, the initial story, and it was going to be for an anthology, but we got rejected. But it all worked out for us because, I mean, I think that was like 2019 when we first started talking about the book, and now 4 years later, it's out. And yeah, but like after those 4 years, it's like we've become so close. I visited him that summer, like 2019 is when we started really working on that book, or started working on the story at least. And like I like text him almost every day, so
Nice.
we like this.
Can you give a little brief rundown of what Frontera is for maybe our audience who aren't familiar with it?
Let's do that. Let me do a little
Gabe
thing.
is modeling it there. There you go.
So Frontera is about this boy named Mateo, and he's immigrating back into the country through the Sonoran Desert. And on his journey there, he gets lost, but a ghost, Guillermo, who died years and years ago, is helping him on his journey. The story is fictional, but it is super grounded. Like, other than the ghost, every like moment within the book is based on a real story, like a real like example is like the character, he goes to a water aid station and like finds the station completely wrecked and destroyed because of a border patrol. And this is like based on real events that have actually happened, and there's like the whole book has that grounded feeling, and it's our first graphic novel, and I'm like super happy with it. I can't say that often about like stuff that I draw because I'm a harsh critic, but like it's one of those things where I was like, I'm super proud of it. It's our baby, so yeah.
As you should be. Yeah, be proud of it. Yeah, show it off. I've been looking for it. I just probably have to go online and order it. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
So how important was it for you to develop this story and for you to get it out there? I know that you're Mexican American, and you belong to the same culture that is depicted within the book. How important was it for you to tell that type of story?
It was super important. I won't lie. Like initially, this is Julio's idea, and when he was telling me about it, it was mostly inspired by like anger, just of what like it was like 2019. So the president at that time, not a great guy. But so like there was a lot of just conflict going on at the border, and he was just like, okay, I need to tell like a story. And working with Julio, I've kind of like become closer with like my culture and like the Mexican side of me, because beforehand it was just like it wasn't too focused. I wasn't too focused on that, but it was super, I don't know, refreshing and kind of like reinvigorating. Just like becoming closer to that side of my family. It's my dad's side, and like it had me curious about like what his journey was, and just
cool.
hearing about it, and just like and also just the context of what I was aware of, like he was in the army for like over 20 years and still was not a legal citizen. So it's like, being aware of that, and then having what Julio's told me, or had the inspiration for the story, and like I know the process and how long it takes, and like I know it is so justified for people to cross the border. Like these people want a better life, and it is angry that people are like, no, you have to do it the right way, and it's just like it's not that. Like you don't understand what is going on in someone's life and how hard that process is.
Right. That's really cool that it brought you, working with Julio and in these comics, brought you closer to your Mexican culture heritage. I myself am in a similar boat because when I started this podcast, I'm half Mexican, half Jewish, but I really didn't explore my Mexican heritage and culture that much. But talking to different creative people through the show here, I've been able to really have a greater sense of this whole tapestry that I'm involved with. So it's really cool. No. It's really cool to hear that.
It is exciting. And it just gets me excited to be more involved in just stuff.
And I think it speaks to the importance of representation, right? Within comic books and within art. I was talking earlier about just watching Blue Beetle, and you obviously worked on Blue Beetle, but to see a superhero that looks like us, that is a brown person, that is the hero, is so important for young kids to grow up, and even for adults to be able to see that representation and see that side of us being represented is so powerful. So thank you for being part of that with your work with Frontera and Blue Beetle. And I also have another piece of your work, Young Men in Love,
yes.
anthology that you took part of, that also has a bit of like a fantasy supernatural feel to it. Is that something that you're, I know that you didn't write the story, but is that something that you're attracted to in your own personal life, to the supernatural or fantasy?
I think both those stories are kind of what I really like, that taste of like it's grounded but just with a little twist. Like what that twist is, it could be anything, but like I like slice of life stuff. I love slice of life just stories. But I love I love my little twist, And that story was really cool. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Rebelde.
Yeah.
One of the this is my little it's like unnoticeable, like you would have to be a hardcore fan to find it, but like the boy, when he's sitting on the dock, he has like a tourist shirt of the band. So
nice.
That's cool.
But yeah, and also the Peter Pan character is definitely based off of Jeremy Sumter from like the Peter Pan from like 2003 or 4.
Yeah. I'm thumbing through it and I'm looking at it, the t-shirt. That's awesome that you put that in there.
Yeah, so I was like, there's my little
there's your little nod. You're like, there you go. Now, have you always been drawing, doodling from a very young age, or is that something that maybe you got into, or when did you pick up or get inspired to create art?
I want to say either 5th or 6th grade. I mean, I've been drawing like forever, but 5th or 6th grade is when I was like, oh, I'm drawing, because my dad, he has like a very like kind of beaky nose. So like I was like sitting on the couch and, he was beside me, and I would like look, and you just see this like perfect profile, and I was like, the literal urge of like, I want to draw that, and so I did, and then I like was kind of very much just going with that process and just kept drawing and drawing, and then I did pastels, but we're not going to do that anymore.
Was there a certain point or time where you're like, hey, you know what? I could maybe make a living or maybe do something with this for my career or future?
Yeah, actually, I blame my mom for getting me into comics. So they had like this evening program on TV, and it just shows like local events going on, and she was watching that, and it was they were talking about Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, and she like comes up to me, she's like, hey, do you want to go to this? Because I wasn't into comics at all at this point. It was just like because of Star Wars, where it's just like, I know you like Star Wars. This is nerd stuff, so you want to do it? I'm like, okay, sure.
This is nerd stuff.
And like at that back then, it's like you could buy the badges at comic shops.
Oh, okay.
So we went to our local comic shop, and it was like crazy, mind blowing. And I do think about like the comic shop. My local comic shop was this like giant blue warehouse, and it was like great staff, like top of the line stuff. And yeah, like that was my first time going to a comic shop. I was blown away.
Nice.
There we go. This Anakin Skywalker one. That was like the first figure I got. Like that's one of the first things I bought from the store, from that comic shop, and a trade of Kick-Ass. Because I think I was a freshman in high school, so I had to be edgy. I was like, what? I need violence,
So,
but yeah, that was kind of that start, and then at that point I was kind of like maybe considering like fine arts, but that was so broad and like vague, and like also I was like, how would I even get to a point where I can live? And then once I like was reading comics, I was like, oh, wait a minute, like this is a career like right here.
Yeah,
so,
very cool.
Speaking of that, did you go to school for that, or are you self-taught? What was your process of becoming, a professional artist?
I did go to school, so I did. My mom as well. She was like very supportive to an extent where it was like, okay, but you have to go to school or college. I was like, okay. And I was privileged enough where she was like, I wanted to go to New York, and she was like, there's the School of Visual Arts there, and they have an actual degree in cartooning, which is comics. And I was like, I want to do this, and she was like, okay, like. It was like she kind of got herself with that one. But
you asked, Mom.
yeah. I was like, you're making me go. So, but so I went to SVA for 2 years. The first year was like prereqs, and I was like my kind of letting go of fine arts. So I did like a bunch of weird stuff and a lot of penis art for some reason. And that was like super fun and like just a super cool experience to have. And then the second year, that was like when it was like, all right, we're doing comics now. And I got to be taught by like Klaus Janson.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he was super cool, and like he very much kind of took me under his wing, which was like a really cool experience. Like it kind of validated just like how I felt, like, or just validated like where I was at in my just comic making. And like we've become friends now, and like every time I get to visit the city, I try to like go see him. And after that, I was kind of like, okay, I kind of got what I wanted though, and I don't want to like take out any more loans. So I left. My mom got mad at me, and I've just been kind of like going to Comic Cons and just like giving people little ash cans, like, "Hey, I draw comics. Hey, I draw comics." And I mean, if you're trying to break into comics, I highly recommend that.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice, I guess. Just get your name out there to as many people as you can who are in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's been like a really common theme with a lot of the guests that we've had on the show is like, if you're really passionate about something and you want to do something within, a creative environment, just start making the work that you want to make. And then then try to discover, okay, who's going to buy it, who's going to help produce it, who's going to help finance it, etc. But at the end of the day, if you want to create something, it's on you to create it. So that's interesting that's a very common piece of advice that a lot of our guests have had.
Yeah, I think just going back to like the school thing, it's always been like a question I think about is like, was that worth it though?
Yeah.
And it is kind of interesting because I did learn a lot, but it's like, was that just like my experience or, but yeah, I think Comic Cons are such a big like help. I know there's technically like a price wall because I mean like they do keep getting expensive. They're like $70 for a day now.
Wow.
Depending on what con. But it's like I've met like some really cool people that way. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Wilson the Fourth.
I'm not.
I'm curious. He doesn't really do too many comics. He does a lot more print stuff now, but I remember he was like one of the few people because I heard like, oh, he gives critiques and now we're like friends. And every time I see him at a show, I'm like, hey, what's up? Like we go get food. But yeah,
that's really cool. Is there any? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as a question, I think a lot of artists are very fearful of critiques and are really, it's really hard for them. How did you get to the point where were you able to put your stuff out there for critique and to see it for what it was worth, for the value of having someone critique it? How did you make that adjustment, or was it ever difficult for you to get that work out there?
Great question. I think I've been pretty open to critiques. But also I think it goes to like who I'm getting the critique from. Now, let's say if it's like just some friend that doesn't read comics and is like, hey, you drew this kind of weird. I would probably not, I'd probably be like more annoyed than just like, oh, okay. But like, so the talent editor, I knew I was not going to get anything from his work, but at the time, I'm pretty sure I felt confident. From Marvel, I made this little Punisher ash can comic that like it was just like my own story. And at that time, I was doing a lot of like splatter like stuff, and it wasn't even like blood splatter. It was like just splatter for effect, texture, I guess. And the first thing he says, he opens it and he says, splatter. I was just like, oh, fuck.
It's like, you might not want to turn that page.
But, like, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but I crap or not. That, like, made me be like, okay, maybe that was too much splatter. And I think also a little bit of me was like feeling confident in what I was doing, at least at that time. So I felt like, like this is technically my best work. So let me show it and, like take the critique honestly and truly work on that. And going back to Robert Wilson, one of his critiques was like, hey, like, I think you should try to clean up your lines a little bit more. Like, and he was like, he said that, but also as like the part where it's like, this might also just be a little preference like thing where, but like, these people have been doing it for a while now, so they know what they're talking about. And like, I've taken that critique, like both those critiques to heart, not in a negative way, but just like, okay, like I see their point. And I think definitely depends on who I'm getting the critique as to how much it's going to affect me.
Yeah.
or annoy me.
Very cool. Very cool. So obviously, seeing from your background there, you are a huge pop culture fan and comic book fan. Is there anything you're currently reading, watching, listening to that you can share with us that maybe
Yes.
inspires you?
I actually made a little list for you guys because I was watching your shows. I was studying up, I promise. What do we have on here? So definitely reading, well, I guess finishing Daredevil, the Zdarsky run.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that one. I'm like collecting the hardcovers. You can't really see it from that angle, but I'm collecting the hardcovers as well. And like the first volume for the hardcover is completely out of print, so I've been like stalking eBay all over for it. So annoying. The Something's Killing the Children like universe stuff, so like House of Slaughter and both the main title, another killer series, literally.
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows. That one.
Nice.
I love it. Probably after this, I'm gonna watch the Ahsoka show.
Yes. I'm gonna watch that tonight as well.
Yes, I mean, you could probably guess that already, but
yeah. I mean, I got you. I got you with my. I like your X-wing in the background there. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Twins practically. What do we got? Barbie, which was amazing. I didn't have any pink. Team NT, the new one, that was so good.
Mm-hmm.
This Fool, I don't know if you've heard of that one. That one's on Hulu.
I haven't.
I've heard of it. Haven't watched it yet though. I've heard of it though.
It's like a kind of cholo version of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, nice.
And of course, Blue Beetle, which I think I'm like hesitant to give people my review on that one just because I'm like, did I like it because I understood a lot more references, or was it just genuinely that good? I think it's a little bit of both, but I was dying laughing with certain scenes in that movie, and also I literally cried. Like, I've never cried that hard in a movie, and that was maybe it was because I wasn't expecting that, but like that was so good.
I'm sure Gabe, you know what he's talking about.
Shed a little bit of a tear. Anything that has to do with like parents or like specifically like a dad makes me cry. I have both of my parents are still with me, but like for some reason that's like my kryptonite. I will just start crying like a baby.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's like Jaime's dad reminds me a lot of like my dad.
Yeah,
and it was just. You got me.
Oddly enough, I also cried at Barbie, so I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I won't lie. Yeah, the ending definitely got me to Barbie, but Blue Beetle had like rolling tears.
Yeah.
But music, Frank Ocean that's my guy. Haven't listened to him in a while, but I mean, like he hasn't released music in a while, so
yeah.
But, you have to go revisit like classics a lot of times with artists, and I find myself listening to the same albums over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to listening to music, do you, when you're creating your artwork, when you're drawing, do you typically have music playing, and is there any specific music that kind of helps get the creative process going?
Not consciously at least, but I do listen to music. I have been listening to it way more now. As of now, it's been a lot of like house music.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
And like I'll be at my table just kind of just doing this while drawing and just moving along. And I think it's pretty motivating for me. It gets me literally moving, and I feel a little faster with it. But like I like a nice little like disco house music. I listen to this YouTube station or channel, Book Club Radio, and they have a little DJ sets going on, or like
cool.
Another DJ set is like it's Boiler Room. I don't know if you're familiar, but they have a lot of house music and DJs playing, so I'm just grooving along to that. But other than that, nothing too much. I usually but most of the time it's also like I forget to put on music, or like it stops after a certain song. So I'm just like, I have these in, and it's like there's nothing going. So these are just for a display at this point.
Yeah. Well, you get so engrossed in your work, I'm guessing, that you just don't even realize that it's just silence at that point. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's exactly what happens. It's just like I'm focusing on work. I don't have time to start a new song.
Very cool. Well, if people wanted to follow along with you on social media and follow your journey and your work, where could they find you at?
On Twitter, yes, not X,
Not X.
and Instagram, I'm at Not Jacoby, NOTJACOBY. I'm also that on Blue Sky.
Okay.
And I am doing TikTok now, but someone took
okay.
Not Jacoby, so it's just my first and last name, Jacoby Salcedo.
Nice.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Jacoby, or Not Jacoby,
Yeah.
thank you for taking some time to chat with us today. We really appreciate
that. Thank you guys so
that.
much again. This is super fun.
Before we let you go, though, is there anything you want to tease, or maybe that's coming out that you're working on for the future, like that we can look forward to?
Well, if we're going further in the future, 2026, Julio and I do have a middle grade graphic novel that's been announced called Paco and Tiny.
Okay.
Nice.
We do have a IP character next year fall.
Okay.
No hints in the background at all.
I'm looking around now.
Yeah. But other than that, mostly just working with Julio, and I think almost strictly working with Julio. But yeah.
Nice. What's the saying? If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Wait, let me probably shout this out too. It's Only Teenage Wasteland, the trade as well.
Very
it
cool.
comes out August 30th.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I was looking for issues of that. Now just go pick up the trade.
Yeah, go pick it. The trade honestly looks amazing. I personally prefer the trade design than the single issues.
Okay.
It looks cooler. And
Very
also,
cool.
it has speaking of music, each issue has its own playlist.
Oh,
and there's
nice.
a QR
Nice.
code and within each one. So
Oh, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. I like when creatives do that. They tie the comic books or the art with music and stuff. That's really cool.
yeah, that was definitely, was like, hey, can we do this? And by we, it was just me, because I just wanted to do it.
Well, I'm glad you did, and I'm looking
Yes.
forward to picking that up then.
And of course, we also have.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. We got Young Men in Love, and definitely don't forget Frontera. Yeah.
Highly recommended from yours truly here at Popcult X. So all of our readers or listeners should go out and read them and take a look, and definitely support all the great work that you've been doing.
Thank you. Thank you again so much, guys. This is fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure. That was a really fun conversation we had with Jacoby. Really cool artist, doing a lot of great work. I definitely highly recommend going out and checking out Frontera and Young Men in Love. I think I found Young Men in Love at my local comic book shop. Frontera I got off of Amazon. So definitely go and look it up, check it out, buy it, support artists making good work. That's definitely how we show our support around these parts. So I highly recommend people going out and picking it up. So other than that, I think we're all set. Danny, was there anything else that you wanted to mention this week regarding pop culture?
No, I think that pretty much covered it for this week.
Nice. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening, for watching us on YouTube. You know where to find us. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you again in 1 week. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye, everyone.